2. Hello and welcome to Hair in the Hawthorn. My name's Kate Ray. It seems like a hot minute since we have been on air, and I can only apologise for that. So, from my perspective, I have been super busy writing my second novel, which should be out in the summer. So, for those of you who don't know, I wrote Woolly Snots, which is about the Woolerton Gnome encounter. The second in the series of that will be coming out, and hopefully it's going to be a little bit different. It was really fun to write, but that has been taking up a lot of my time. And this weekend's going to mark the final stages of things getting in for the publisher. So I'm back on it. So hopefully we'll be recording and putting out on a regular basis again. And I've missed doing this. It's been something that's kind of been lacking in my life. So I am going to introduce to you our guest today. So we're going to be talking with Andy DeCodes, and he is somebody who's super interesting because he's a multiple experiencer. He's also a prolific podcaster and has an amazing podcast, and I'm sure he'll tell you all about it. To jump over and go and subscribe, because it's for me it's fascinating because he has guests from the whole 40 arena, and it all kind of ties in, and it's just absolutely brilliant. So welcome, Andy. Thank you for coming along and sitting on the virtual couch. It's really lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me, Kate. It's an absolute pleasure. It really
Could
is.
you could you just, as briefly as you can, just have a bit of a rundown, a bit of a bio of kind of who you are, and then we'll get into the brass tacks of the interview.
Right. So I am Andy DeCodes. I'm from the UK, originally from Manchester, born and bred. I moved south back in 2008 for a number of different reasons. But one of the main reasons why I've stayed is because the weather's so much better and it doesn't rain out as much. So suppose it's like East Anglia where I am now. Which is a good part of the UK to be in because you're very central to everything. But since being down here, during the lockdown period, I kind of got needed to felt like, well, I suppose everyone was going through the same sort of thing. Felt like you needed to do something just to
Yeah.
make things happen. So I
Mm.
created Facebook group, website, which I no longer have. And I knew nothing about YouTube channels. I didn't know how they worked. And then it was literally, if you have a Gmail account, you have a YouTube channel. And it's as simple as that. So I was watching all these different stuff on TV, and I thought, do you know, and on YouTube, obviously, I thought, do you know what, I'm going to give it a go. So that's what I did. But the reason behind all that is I've had encounters from, I'm 52 now. For the first one I can recall was when I was 4 years old. And up until about 2 weeks ago, I've had stuff go on. Sometimes it's been like 2, 3 years of nothing, or I've not recognized anything that I could say, yeah, that was paranormal or that was supernatural. But then when it does happen, because, and I suppose I know what I'm to look out for. So
Mm.
when something does happen, it's like, yes. And I make a mental note. I don't write anything down at all, nothing. So this is another good reason why I think that I do the podcast, because I've got a audio and video version. So if I do need to look back, it's the video library of everything I've ever spoke about.
Yeah. And
But with,
we were
sorry,
sorry,
go
go
on.
on.
No, it's okay.
No, I'm fascinated because we started just before we came on air chatting about one of your very early experiences, which
Yeah,
I think is a good place to start from, especially because we're here in the Hawthorn, and it's
yeah,
fairy based. So, do you want to just talk through that very first encounter?
yeah. So do you want me to show the image that I found? So this isn't my photograph. This is one that I found
Yeah.
probably about 5 years ago.
Hmm.
So this is the image of my very first encounter, and it's probably about the size of my phone, and my phone's about 6 inches top to
Hmm.
bottom. Um, and I recall pretty much when it was, because growing up in Manchester, I lived on a council estate, and it's like very early 70s. So there was, from what I was told, there was no central heating in the houses. So the
Hmm.
council was coming round and doing the central heating because they all had chimneys and like back burners and all that. So they moved us out of the house for 3 months while they renovate because obviously they've got to do every room and fit everything. So they moved us out of the house about 3, 4 months, and it was either just before or just after my fourth birthday that we
Hmm.
moved out and then back in. So that's how I know. So it was like 1977.
Hmm.
So that's how I know when it was, because we was offered to stay in the house where we was, even though it was a bigger house. It was a worse area of where we was before. So mum said, no, we'll go back to where we are. So brief description of the house, just so you can understand why I don't believe it can be anything else other than this. So the front of the house, there's a small garden. You're going through the front door. Immediately to the right with the stairs going upstairs. To the left was what a pantry or cloakroom. And then straight in front of you, you walk through the door. You've got the living room. To the right, the kitchen. Right again on the side wall was a door going into the back garden. Now the back garden, we had so like the side garden, and then along the back garden was probably about 100, 150 foot long and about 70, 80 foot wide. So
Hmm.
it was a massive garden. My mum and dad used to grow veg. They had a greenhouse, a strawberry pet, everything. You
Hmm.
name my job in the summer was collecting caterpillars and bugs off all the different foods that they were growing. So there was some there for us.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
had like raspberries and blueberries and all that kind of stuff. So back into the house. So you go up the stairs, you get to the top, you landing window, and then you do a 180 and you come back on yourself. Two bedrooms were on the right hand side, had
Hmm.
a separate toilet and bathroom. The toilet was opposite the second bedroom door, and the bathroom was at the very end of the corridor. So this particular day, my mum had put me in her bed because I said to you before, I was known as a human radiator. So she'd stick me in to warm it up. And then when she come to bed, she'd take me out, put me in my own room, and then get in bed and know that like for your mum and dad would be nice and warm. So where as you go in the door, the bed was immediately on the left hand side, and then the bedroom window was on the opposite wall. So as you lay in bed, adjacent to the bed on that wall was the door into the bedroom. So I'm laying in bed and I'm facing the wall and I'm watching this thing that I just shown you,
Hmm.
and it's like pirouetting on the wall. It just, I don't know if it faded and faded. It was, it was just there. Didn't make any noise. Didn't try and speak to me. Not that I can recall anyway. And I'm just watching it dance around. So the curtains were shut, but the reason why I explained where the door was, so if any light, because mum left the landing light on, if any light was coming in through the door, obviously it's usually around the bottom between the door and the frame, it would have had to come in, hit the opposite wall and bounce back onto that wall, which back in the 70s, there was nothing like that. And we definitely didn't have mirrors set up for that to happen. And at the back of the house, it was just fields. There's a college and it was just fields, a golf course, a sewerage works, wasteland. There's nothing, there's no development on there. There's other than the college, you couldn't see any other buildings. The next street down was at an angle. So the end house in that street and our house, our back gardens met. So they
Yeah.
kind of, so they both came in like that, and then
Hmm.
directly behind the trees were just fields.
Hmm.
So there's no unnatural light being able to get in. So it couldn't have been anything other than that. The only other thing that we had going on was because we were so close to Manchester Airport, a lot of the flights used to circle when they're waiting to come into land. But they was too far away. And if they was shining a light and it wouldn't just be a little prism thing on the wall, it'd be a big blast of light like a spotlight.
Hmm.
So wasn't a plane, didn't really have the helicopters or anything like that. And like I said, there was no noise or anything coming in. And I was just laying in bed watching it, and it's just going round and round, just dancing, like all the different, like the prism, all the different
Mm.
colours. It's mainly blue and white, but you could see the other colours in it. And then the next thing, I'm waking up, and then next morning I'm in my own bed.
So how did you feel? What was the feelings that you had at that point? Were you frightened or just
No,
curious or?
None. This is the most weird thing because I spoke to so many people about their encounters and their emotions and everything, and everyone comes back with everything but pretty much what I've said. Mine was just, it was just, even then, it was just normal. It wasn't,
Mm,
it was like seeing a dog walk down the street. It was like getting a glass of water out the tap. It was just a normal occurrence, even though it wasn't happening, or I can't recall it happening every day.
mm.
It just felt like a normal thing. It's like,
Yeah, just a
yeah,
whatever moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was just that. There's nothing. I wasn't scared. I wasn't excited. It was just, oh,
What's that?
yeah,
Did
yeah.
you in your mind equate that to a fairy? Did you equate that, or was it later? Did you think about what that might have been, or
It wasn't until I started to do this at this level and really look into it and do some like my own research and other people look at other people's research, like yourself, and like how deep you delve into stuff and what you come up with. And that's when you start noticing, I wouldn't say patterns, but more of connections to
mm,
all the different things. And then, like I said, I found that photograph on Facebook probably about 5 years ago. I was like, and then it was a trigger moment. It was like that
mhm,
was the first thing I ever seen. And it's like it's a light being, but then what is a light being? Is it an
mhm.
ET? Is it a cryptid? It's something that's on our realm but in a different dimension. And then you've got a million more questions and probably
Yeah, definitely.
half an answer if you're
I
lucky.
think we'll only, yeah, if you're lucky, we'll only ever get quarter of an answer. I was saying to you again, just before we came on air, that I had a very similar experience in the daylight in Sherwood Forest about
Yeah,
probably about 10 years ago. I was walking my then dog. And Sherwood Forest has always got that kind of energy about it. There's certain areas that have got different energies. But what shocked me was where I had the encounter, which was on a very busy pathway just up from the major oak. And the dog was off snuffling ahead, and there were people around. And something caught the corner of my eye, and I looked over and I saw that picture that you've just
yeah,
shown,
yeah,
but hovering at about head height. And my first reaction was, oh, there's a fairy. It was that kind of, oh, it's a
yeah,
mundane thing that's happening. And then something clicked in my brain of like, oh my God, this is a fairy. And I
yeah,
turned again and it was still there. And when I watched it, it kind of went out, like the old-fashioned TVs that had static on,
yeah.
and you'd turn them off and
And
the
you
screen would just go,
go, yeah,
yeah, and just go out of the ether, if you like. And I pondered because it was very much, we've got artists like Brian Froud who create these light beings
yeah,
that sort of radiate the wing shapes because it did, and radiate a body. So my feeling is that that was something trying to manifest into our reality
yeah,
and pushing its energy out, but hadn't quite formed. That was the feeling that I got. And very much the photos that you've shown are almost not quite humanoid, aren't they?
yeah, yeah. They're like they've got that something else about them, but
Mm,
like you said, because they're not fully formed in our like third dimension, maybe that's as far as they can get as to showing themselves what they are. That's how they exist
yeah,
to us.
yeah. Or it could be that they didn't have enough energy input, or they didn't quite
Yeah,
want to come onto the plane. And it was almost, it felt like as I looked at this thing again, it was almost like, oh shit, I've been spotted, and that kind of,
yeah,
I'm out again. I've absolutely gone again.
yeah,
Now we're talking right at the start about you being a multiple experiencer. And I know that you've had encounters of all kinds. So, what was the next thing after that? Because you had something that was fairly quick in succession, didn't you?
yeah. So,
From that encounter.
well, quick as in wasn't like 2 3 days after. This
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a few years that like 3 4 years, but there was other stuff that went on in between.
yeah.
It's like a gold stake. My cousins, he won't mind me telling you this. His dad was the groundsman for Salford Rugby Ground, So they live literally opposite. It's like 20-second walk. But all that part of Salford was built on a cemetery. So we'd be up
Mm.
in his bedroom playing with his action men and that. I remember the old knob turning on the doors with a little thumb
Yes.
slide lock.
Yeah.
So you'd have to pass his bedroom to get to the bathroom in the house. He was in a terraced house, so you had the front room, then the middle room, and the kitchen. But the stairs were really steep all the way up. The main bedroom, you'd come back on yourself. Then there's the middle room, then the bathroom, there's a bedroom at the end. And there's someone tapping on the door, and he goes, "Oh, it'll be me dad," because they were all downstairs. My uncle had a Betamax video, and there was and this is the way there was watching Poltergeist, and then we went downstairs after watching Raiders of the Lost Ark. So this is like probably early, late 70s. Yeah, late 70s, not even the 80s then. So we thought it'd be one of them like trying to scare us knocking on the door. And then the handle started turning. And we're like giggling and laughing and like a little bit scared. But my cousin, it was his house, he was adamant. So they tried to, anyway, we opened the door, there's no one there. He goes, they probably ran into a room or the bathroom or something. So, all right, carried on. And the three big bangs, and I mean, like, it was like someone had a hammer and it was, and in the middle of the third knock, I grabbed the door and opened it. I've got goosebumps now. There
Mm.
was no one there. I didn't even touch the stairs to get down. I just grabbed and just slid all the way down to the bottom and went straight in the room. I'm not going back up there anytime soon because I knew
So
it was something that wasn't that we couldn't see.
yeah. So that's one fairy type experience, and then
Yeah,
an almost sort of poltergeist or I would say threatening or malevolent ghost
it was
experience.
like it wasn't so much threatening. It was more like trying to intimidate a bit, like the
Hmm.
trickery. And then looking back at it, I'm very much now with poltergeist activity. I'm going down the Fey route with it, at the
Hmm.
trick stop. I'm not. I'm not on the page of poltergeists or evil spirits or demons or anything like that. I've completely gone from there. I
Yeah.
think poltergeist activity, it could be that. I'm not, we don't know. But my thought as of now is it's something to do with the Fey folk. It's got to be.
Hmm.
Because if it was something more malevolent than that, surely they do more harm to you because they have the
Hmm.
ability to do that. If they're going to do something, they're going to do it. They're not just going to make noises and bang about and scare you.
Hmm.
They're doing it for a laugh, same way we
Yeah.
would do it to someone. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah. Yeah. It is there is a prankster element, and I'm definitely with you over the years. I've become more and more on the side of that kind of what would be called demonic behavior, which I mean, I don't like that term, but it's a term that people understand.
yeah,
I think it's very rare, and I think it's as rare as people have those angelic encounters. Those two ends of the spectrum for me. It's when these ghost programs,
yeah,
banter around.
yeah,
It's a demon.
yeah,
We all
yeah,
know. We all know which. I'm not saying Ghost Adventures
yeah. What
out
was
loud
that,
because
Baggins?
I didn't say anything. Wasn't me. Wasn't me. But when everything is demonic, it kind of diminishes looking at anything else. It puts you in a box and a category which you can't get
Yeah,
out of, doesn't it?
yeah. Well, I've read a lot of like growing up, like the 80s and 90s, a lot of demonic stuff, and the stuff like that where people have been attacked by demons. They've actually seen people dragged through the ground, and they can hear them screaming underground, and they've never been seen again.
Yeah.
And these are like family members that have witnessed it,
Hmm.
like the father or the brother or something is just walking along the field is what, and he was there, then he vanished, and they went to the spot and they could hear him screaming underground, and
Mm.
but there's no way of getting to him.
No.
So that's demonic because that's intent of them doing something bad to you for
Mm.
whatever reason. So if it is a demon, they're not just going to bang some pans together and slam a kitchen cupboard, are they? Come
It's a
on,
bit rubbish. It's a bit
yeah.
rubbish as a demon, isn't it? It is. You've got all that
Yeah.
power, and what you're gonna do? Sort of
Oh,
knock on a door. I'm
yeah.
gonna bang on a door. I mean, talking about being dragged underground, I know that those who are from Ireland and those who are of an Irish persuasion will probably pick up on the theme there with it being fairy as well.
Yes.
Fairies are seen to live underground, and they are not, as we know, nice creatures. And
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, the thing is for me, when there is a very specific protocol with parapsychology to actually look at something that gets to a point of exorcism where they'll say, yes, there is something of that kind of nature being housed or around a person. And I always think it's quite interesting that the kind of icing on the cake for that is levitation. So unless you can go through all this, the scratches, the demonic voices, we're talking about Enfield poltergeist and
Yeah.
all those kind of things. And unless the person levitates, they're not taken seriously. It's like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
How much
Yeah.
more do you want out of somebody, to see them float in midair?
Yeah. But going back to what you said, like obviously with the Fae that live underground, I get that because they want to take something back with them from our realm. And
Hmm.
we've spoke about that before. But this is I don't mean it's not that. I mean, when these people have been dragged underground, they've been taken, and
Mm,
then you get these other people that someone vanishes or just goes missing, and then they get a phone call, and it's the background sounds like they're in hell, like you'd see in a movie.
mm,
And you can hear the
mm,
screaming and the fire, and it's all these like clicking tongues on the phone,
mm,
and the person's like, "Help me, I can't get out," and whatever.
mm,
That kind of for me, that's demon intervention. It's got to
mm.
be. But I know, like you said, like with the faith, you want to try and take you and go into their realm, and it's like an offering, isn't it? Really, I suppose.
Well, they nick people for
So
all kinds
yeah,
of reasons. They nick people because they want husbands or wives. They nick people because they're particularly good at playing music. And,
yeah,
the folklore is absolutely full of humans being sort of stolen away. And especially within Irish and Celtic, there is a lot of those connections with what we would now deem within a modern Christian sense as a demonic encounter.
yeah.
So mm, demons. I'm not saying never. I'm not saying
No, no,
never
no.
because good grief, I don't ever want to sort of put that out there and then end up possessed or something. That would just absolutely freak me out.
Yeah,
I do believe for me in what I call crippled soul. So when somebody is on point of death and they believe that they're not going to go to heaven for whatever reason, they become almost like prune-like, like almost like a tumor of the previous selves, and
yeah,
everything bad that they feel that they've done in this life literally makes them into these malevolent demonic type characters. I
yeah,
mean, because you were a paranormal investigator, weren't you? So you
yeah,
kind of have come across a plethora of things. So when we do paranormal investigations, it's very rare that you kind of come across, the very malevolent, lovely spirits. It's a rarity going out there that when people are haunted, it's usually the really scary stuff, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. So I've been places where we've gone in, and it's like I need to get out of here, and we've
Hmm.
walked out backwards. Like I've wanted to run, but rule number one, don't run. Don't turn your
Yeah.
back, don't run. So we've walked slowly backwards up this hill, and we sat there. I was ill. I had a headache, weren't feeling well for like a day or two. The girl, Ali, who used to come out with me, she was off work for 3 days with really bad headaches, throwing up, everything. And that's happened to her twice while we've been out after an investigation. So it's like obviously it's known as a paranormal hangover. But
Yeah.
whatever it was that was there was so negative, it's like I'm not going back. And
Mm.
she's like, no, I'm not. And we just sat there watching. I was using the night vision goggles, see if we could
Hmm.
pick anything up. There's no movement, nothing. It was just very uninviting, is what it was.
Mm.
And as soon as I get either that feeling or the message to, right, it's time to go, I'm not,
Mm.
I'm not questioning it. I'm going. I'm not that brave. I'm not that stupid either.
I mean, you talk about para hangovers, and anybody who goes out ghost hunting absolutely knows about them, and they
Yeah,
can last. They can last,
yeah,
and I do believe it is that negative energy coming into your space. But I also get, and I know other people get this as well, what I call paranormal flu beforehand. So
yes,
if I'm going to a place that it's almost like my energy field goes, don't go there. Just go to bed. Don't go there because it's going to affect you. And the worse I feel before an investigation, the more I know is going to happen.
yeah.
So if I'm feeling really crappy, I'm like, it's going to be a buzzing night.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I am that one where I will push the boundaries, and where other people will be like, no, 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 I've got to get out. I'm like, what can we go with this? What can we
Oh,
do
do
with
you not
this?
think though that's more of a what? Not a warning sign, but it's letting you know that if, as and when you go, you're going to get activity.
Yes.
Could, and it's not really a negative thing. It's more because it's not a gut feeling, is it? You feel it through your whole
Yeah,
body.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a big difference. It's like I'm going to Rendlesham again next Saturday, meeting up with Alex Lovelock, Elaine Bright, and a few others. And
Mm,
we just walk around the same areas, and we've had different things go on. I've had my digital K2 meter on a tree, and there's no electricity, there's no gas pipes,
mm,
no water pipe, and you put it on, the numbers are going up. That how I'm like stood leaning up, so it's like 7 foot up at this
mhm.
tree, and you can see the numbers going up on it.
That's amazing. That is
And
amazing.
middle of a forest.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, you can discount a lot of. I'm not a flashy gadget type of person. I'm not technical at all. So when the gadgets come out, I'm kind of like I don't know enough about the brass tacks of them to understand how to pick them apart. But sometimes I just
no,
think got a lot of EMF going around. Especially if I'm on events and you're in a building that's in a town or a
yeah,
city, and you never quite know. For me, I always say, and I don't know whether you're the same, that for me, it has to be sequential evidence. So it has to be a K2 going off, then a REM pod going off, and then something else going off, and all kind of on cue interactive before I start shitting myself. That's
well,
that.
I kind of was like that, but I've stripped back now completely on the gadgets. So
Mhm,
I've got a digital K2, which is a trimeter, which
mhm.
shows energy field, radioactive, and something else. And I don't know what the something else is. Steve Mary did tell me, and I cannot remember what it is. But I'd rather use a pendulum and dowsing
Mhm.
rods
Yeah,
because
me too.
I know they work.
Hmm.
I've done it and I've got nothing. It's like, well, then there's nothing here. It's not
Yeah.
there not working. It means there's nothing here. I've done it the last time I went to Rendlesham and it's all on video and I'm asking questions and I'm just stood there and the ones with the sleeves on. So you've got to
Hmm.
proper shake it to make it move. I'm
Hmm.
like, right, can you point to Alex? Can you point to Tim? And it might take
Hmm.
a couple of seconds, but they do it. And it's
Hmm.
like, can you point behind me? And they both go
Yeah.
like banging on my arms. I'm like, I couldn't do that if I tried. Not to make them both go at the same like simultaneously.
Mm.
And for me, it can't happen. I've been to Cannock and we did a bit of some recording there, and we stood along this little stream, and there's like I don't know if it's an inlet or an outlet, but I had a
Mhm.
feeling there was something there, and I was like trying to connect to the non-humans as a fae folk, and I'm not not having a conversation, but just asking general questions. And it kind of kept pointing to this outlet. And
Mhm.
then same again, there's two other guys that I'd never met before, but I knew of them. Guy called Eddie and Josh. I'm like, can you point to these people? And couldn't see where they were stood because I'm
Mhm.
stood there. Ben was up in a tree filming, and everyone else was stood behind. And so it turned and point, and I looked around to see who it was, and it was that person. So it
Yeah.
does take it, but I know they work. So I'm happy with that. And when I do the pendulum, I normally do it. I've got a chart, I've
Mhm.
got numbers, alphabet, and yes, no, maybe. And
Mhm.
depending what I'm doing, sometimes I just do it just to keep the communication going, just to keep that connection.
Mhm.
It's like, what day of the week is it? Are you happy? Just like you
Mhm.
talk to a friend, that sort of
Yeah.
stuff, just to keep it running. And it's never failed to not work other than
Mhm.
when there's not been anything there.
Yeah.
So, and if that's how it works for me, then that's what I'm going to keep on doing.
Yeah,
But
I totally agree. I think a lot of people have gone over in the paranormal world to less technical
yeah,
forms of communication, haven't they?
yeah. Because like you said about the REM pods, I've been with people that have had REM pods and used them in the spirit boxes. Um, the apps that you get on your phone are just, I'm not going to slate them, but they've got to be preloaded.
Hmm.
And even if they're not, they're just going to pick up because some don't use a microphone. They say they don't use a microphone, but if you go into the back of it, it'll say what
Yeah.
you're allowing it to use. So they're going to be preloaded. So if you're saying well, it's going to pick them up, the only ones that I think are really any good are the ones that use a white noise that have no
Yes.
transmitter. Like the ones I don't know, Ron Yacovetti and his wife Lourdes, they
Yeah.
did Staticom, and I've
Hmm.
interviewed them and going to be meeting them this year. And they've got a new one now, digital something. And what they do, it is absolutely amazing. They've explained it. The Tony and his wife, they work with them as well. Rathmans.
Hmm.
And what them four do and how they've got to where they are now with it is absolutely, it's just mind blowing. It's the results that they get, and it's real time as well.
Mm.
It's not, you're not having to listen to it back afterwards. It's constant, and it's like there is no way, there's no interference, there's nothing else coming in, there's no receivers.
Mm.
So, and it just strips everything back. So what you're getting, but this is the thing, you still don't know where these voices are coming from.
I know, or what they are as well. I mean,
Yeah,
I've definitely got into the mindset that it's not always or necessarily the spirits of the dead that are coming through on these
no,
devices. That, we've had times when we've had references to alien. We've had
yeah,
times when we've had references to fairies. So it's and how do they do it? How do they manipulate that energetic frequency to be able to manipulate it into a voice? That is just fascinating.
I know. There is one app that I use, but it's just a recording app. It's called Dolby On. So you know the
Hmm.
Dolby, the double D.
Yes.
It's just
Yeah.
a recording, and you can clean the audio. It's free. You do it on iPhone and Android. And me and Tim was at a old consecrated church just around the corner from me.
Hmm.
It was a Saturday afternoon or something, and we'd gone out, and he put his down, and we're talking. He had his REM pod, and we're just asking questions, and we're listening to it back because we'd stop it every few minutes, and it was like, do you know the predator noise?
Mm.
But like it was that come through, but more frog like a croaky.
Hmm.
It's, and we just like what? We just looked at
Yeah.
each other like. I even checked in the ground to see if there's any frogs or toads about because it
Hmm.
was more of a toad noise than a frog noise,
Hmm.
and there was nothing there. The grass wasn't that long, and it would have had to have been right up next to the phone for it to pick
Mm.
it up that loud. I'm like, there's definitely something else here with us. And as we're talking, at one point we was both talking, not talking at the same time, but as I finished, she'd start and vice versa. And you could hear someone breathing over the top of both of us, like,
Yeah. It's
it's like
mad,
that.
isn't it?
Wow. Yeah. So
It
we've
is
had,
mad.
it's
I've
just,
actually I've actually had some while I've been recording for podcasts
yeah,
that other people have picked up on. I had one years ago when I was doing somebody else's podcast, and they heard it, I didn't, but they heard a growl coming from my mic, and afterwards they isolated it, and it could only have come from my mic, and it was a real they sent me it, and it was a real deep
oh,
guttural kind of kind of thing,
yeah,
and it wasn't my stomach. As a paranormal investigator, you kind of clock it, don't you, and think,
yeah,
you think, I've got a rumbly stomach. But one of the best ones was I did past life regression with Paul Goddard, and I did it live,
yeah,
and there was, I can't remember it. It was like a class, probably a class C or a class B EVP. It said something like, tell her. And it was as clear as day. I was under, so I was
Yeah,
hypnotized
yeah,
and under, and loads of people were messaging, did anybody else hear that? And it was again isolated on my mic. So I think I'm sure you feel the same when you speak about these things, when you are in this world, in this realm, and you're thinking about these things, things happen and occur on this kind of almost
yeah,
regular basis, don't they?
yeah, yeah. They do. And I was just thinking then actually, because when I interviewed you last, no, not last time, the time before, so I think it's the
Hmm.
second time, and I said to you last time that I heard this laughter behind. It was after interviewing you, and
Oh, yeah.
it wasn't Joey Kial, it was you.
Yeah.
And I was stood in the kitchen because our dishwasher had broken. I'm like, I need to wash up. So I'd finished work early, and we was looking after Becky's son's dogs. They was asleep in the living room. So I'm stood in the kitchen, no music on, nothing. I thought there's only like a couple of plates in that. I thought I'll just get them done. It's out of the way then. And as I'm doing it, I heard like, do you like Alvin and the Chipmunks? That laugh.
Yeah.
It was one of them coming from either the door from the kitchen that goes into the hallway or the door from the kitchen that goes into the living room around that area. I just, can I swear?
Go on.
I went, fucking fairies. And, it's like, and I looked round and it was overly silent. So I kind of
Yeah.
knew there was something still there. And it
Hmm.
at that point, I think it knew that I'd noticed
Clocked
that it
it.
was there. And then, yeah, it just went back to normal.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's so strange, isn't it? And I used to have, I know, orbs are a massive, contentious issue within the paranormal world. And I'm like a lot of paranormal investigators. 99% of the photos that we get are, or videos that we get are explainable. Either
Yeah,
dust or particles or whatever you. And I don't get it anymore, which is, it's I'm quite sad about that, but I used to get a lot of sort of orb activity, and people used to come on the podcast to orb watch. But
yeah,
the fascinating thing was that every now and again I could see them on screen, but every now and again you could see me tracking them, and like little gold balls, and then
yeah.
they would and I'd be like watching them as they float by. So for me, being able to see with your own eyes
Yeah,
as well as capture it, and I am quite sad because I feel like are the fairies gone?
yeah,
Have these have they disappeared? Because I would kind of like them back, but not for the naughty
yeah.
antics, definitely.
Just
So,
for
can
visual.
I just, yeah, can I ask what is, because you've had so many experiences, what is the weirdest that you've just gone, there is just no way that I could ever get my head around that.
It's, well, now there was two. There's now three. So the first one, and I've told this hundreds of times. I've given the story to a guy who's put in one of his books, George Lansford. He's wrote a book
Mhm.
all like people's accounts, and this was a pterodactyl encounter,
Wow.
and it's just yeah, it was. I was out. I had a telescope in the back garden. It's when I lived in Milton Keynes.
Hmm.
And at this house, there's loads of weird stuff going on, like shadow people, full body apparitions, disembodied voices, growling outside the bedroom window, knocking, you name it, it happened. I'd be watching TV and shadow people just walk in front of the TV. I'm like, can you just let me watch the TV for a bit? And it'd stop for a few days and it'd start again. But this one night, it was summer because it's like 11 o'clock at night. It's one of those big Celestron telescopes.
Yeah.
So I used to keep it in the shed. It's just easier than keep bringing it in and out of the house. So I'd had it set up, been watching the stars and planets and that. And coming back in, I had my phone in my hand, and I just looked up out the corner of my eye to the right, and I just seen this. It's clear sky. I just seen this dark brown tan thing, and then I just watched it. So the roof's where we lived. So we lived in a close, so it's like a square, grass in the
Hmm.
middle, and all the parking, like residential parkers outside. So the roofs came up from the front to the back. So there wasn't your typical pointed roof like that. It was more of a lean-to roof.
Yeah.
and it was just above where I was stood. It was probably about an inch above, and I could see it, and it just went straight across the sky. And I watched it till it had gone. Didn't move, didn't make any noise, didn't flap its wings, didn't move its head, sound nothing. But at the time, I swore blind I'd saw a dragon, right?
Yeah.
So I ran it, didn't even think of taking a photo. So I ran in the house and looking on YouTube, Google everything, trying to find out where it is, and then ended up getting distracted and watching loads of other stuff. Forgot all
Hmm.
about it. And then, like that light being, I found a couple of
Hmm.
pictures on Facebook. And this picture that I'm going to show you now, it was like I I fell back in the chair just looking at it. It's like, oh my, that is what I seen.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much that.
Wow.
But its wings, the wings were slightly different. I'll see if I can find the other image.
Hmm.
Um, I always try and
I mean,
keep everything grouped together. Sorry, go on.
so that I have seen sort of in in the past in 14 times where people have taken photographs of them, and it's usually America, and it's usually over cities. It's almost like, there was a smattering,
Yeah,
probably mid 2000s of people taking images over cities of these things, and people were discussing, are these, electronic gadgets, is it some kind of bird with a rare disorder? People
yeah,
were really trying to figure out, but the majority of images and videos that came out were pterodactyl. That
yeah.
they had this very fleshy type wing to them.
Well, this story gets more weird,
Right.
right? So I watched, and it was a tail, and then you got the diamond bit at the end. That's
Hmm.
what was like that that made it what it was. One of my mates said, "Was it a kite?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, no." And then I thought, "Well, it could have been, but it'd
Hmm.
have had to have been on a really long rope because this thing I worked it out is about 24 foot long from beak to
Hmm.
tail and at least a 16-foot wingspan, at least."
Wow.
But it was more the wings, like they were more curved. You could see like
Hmm.
the claw hand at the top, but it was more
Hmm.
bat-like.
Yeah.
You know where you got the
Yeah. Yeah.
three
Yeah.
segments. I can't find the other photo, but I'd spoke about it on the YouTube channel, and a guy who lived on the other side of Milton Keynes got in contact with me. So sent him details, he emailed me, he was having a chat. So I said, right, send me your number, we'll have a proper chat. So I rang him up and he was saying he'd seen a similar thing. Him and his missus had been to Asda and there's going back to the car, putting the shopping away. And he said it's a beautiful sunset. It's like
Hmm.
about half 8, 9 o'clock at night. So it's probably coming to the end of summer. So they
Hmm.
sat in the car just looking at the sky. And he said he's seen this bird. He thought, oh,
Hmm.
that's a bit weird. And then it turned and he realized what it was and how big it was. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. He was, so I see mine, I'm looking north. No, I'm looking east. So
Hmm.
what when I see mine is flying south to north.
Hmm.
And at the back of where I lived is the old A5, Watling Street, which is one of the
Hmm.
old Roman roads. It was pretty much parallel to that,
Hmm.
right? So when he seen his, he was looking at it from the east. So I'm looking from the west. He's
Hmm.
looking from the east. He seen his, and it was flying south to north. And
Hmm.
we worked out from where he was and where I was, it was roughly in the same part of that flight corridor, probably within a couple of 100 yards.
Wow.
So where I used to live and where he was, there's this small town in the middle called Wolverton, and that's where
Hmm.
you got the A5, and you've got a train line that goes
Hmm.
from London through Milton Keynes, Northampton, all and goes north,
Hmm.
and it was roughly on that south to north,
Crazy. It's
and
crazy.
and it was the same year and roughly the same time of year.
Mm.
So there's been at least two sightings of a big bird.
I think as well when when there has been a couple of sightings, it makes me think how many more people have seen it, dismissed it,
Yeah.
Not wanting to think about it or the possibilities of it. And the other thing is, so few people look up at the sky on a regular basis to know what's natural and what may be supernatural. We're so preoccupied, and
Yeah.
it's amazing when you've got these built-up areas like Milton Keynes. I mean, Milton Keynes is an incredibly built-up place
Oh
in
yeah.
areas, isn't it?
Yeah.
That these things could just go completely free will around a built-up city with just maybe one or two people. There's got to be more people
Yeah.
who've seen those,
Well,
haven't they?
well, this is the thing. And once I started to realize what it was and what was going on, it's like, how many times have these things, like you've just said, flown by? But
Yep.
people are in their at 11 o'clock at night, who's looking up at the sky for a 24
Yes.
foot prehistoric creature? No, not even me. Mine just
Yeah.
happened on the off chance. But
Yeah.
then someone else said, could it have been a drone? Well,
Hmm.
there's no lights, there's no sound.
Hmm.
There's nothing. But then I did an interview with Craig Bryant, who does Pendle Paranormal podcast, and he said
Hmm.
he's had a few people talk to him about that,
Mm.
and on the impression that he got from it is that they get in the thermals, so they just
Yeah.
get into that and drip. And with it being July, August, September,
Mm.
it is warm. I had shorts and a t-shirt on at 11 o'clock at night, so it was warm. So the thermals are going to be a lot lower, so they're not going to have to
Yeah.
go up so high. And then if they're lower down, if I'm not saying it is this, but there's more chance of them being detected and with the size of it being picked up on radar. Because if they've been flying about and then something gets what's the word when they release planes, jets to go and check out where it is,
Oh yeah.
yeah, then maybe
They
yeah,
scramble them, don't
scramble,
they?
yeah, when they
Yeah. Yeah.
scramble them. I'm not saying it is that, but that's still a possibility that maybe
Mm.
that's happened before to these and they've had to go whatever. It could have been
Mm.
a time slip. It could have been anything.
Could have
It could
been.
have it could
I'll
have been
tell
a
you what.
drone.
It
I
could.
don't
Well, I
know.
mean, the other thing that springs to mind is, and it's a question that's always bantered around the sort of the paranormal community, is why are there not any ghost dinosaurs? You know, and
Yes.
but who knows? I mean, I do have my theories about why there's no ghost dinosaurs, and I'll put that on the table.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's played on my mind for many years, and I think that there's no ghost dinosaurs because there is no dinosaurs didn't think in terms of they probably didn't even understand that they were going to die one day.
Yeah.
So they didn't have that cognitive thought pattern that would stop them from just, moving on into
Yeah. Yeah.
spirit. So, and I think as we've developed, and even as our domestic animals have developed, they have a sense of self at the point of death. So
Yeah.
that's why we get a lot of dogs and cats, that are still
Yes.
around in people's properties and horses and that kind of thing
Yeah.
because they connect in with our energy. So who's to say, that pterodactyl wasn't like slightly more conscious of its
Oh yeah.
existence on point of death and just went, yeah, I'm not going off to the great big dinosaur heaven in the sky. I'm going to stick around for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. But it could be that. But
I've
then
just diverted you
I
completely there, haven't
know,
I?
it's fine. But I'll quickly tell you the other two. So
Yes,
the
please
next
do.
one, so it's called Bench Sky. So this was an investigation live stream at a cemetery
Hmm.
just at row from me. There's me and a lad called Mark, and we'd split up. He'd gone one way. Anyway, there's a guy sat on the bench, and I dressed same as Matt, hoodie,
Hmm.
baseball cap. So I'm shining the torch. I'm doing the stream. A couple of people in the studio, and I'm like, I hope it is Mark. I've just blinded a complete stranger. Anyway, I walk over. It wasn't Mark. So I'm like, oh, so sorry. I felt like I
Hmm.
had to explain what I was doing there. So I
Yeah.
told him. He's like, yeah, it's fine. So he looked about 26, 27-ish at the most.
Hmm.
Really pale skin, strong Dutch accent, but spoke really good English. He had
Hmm.
his phone in his hand, couldn't smell any drugs or alcohol or anything like that. He wasn't even smoking, he just sat there. So
Hmm.
I'm thinking, bit weird, you sat there on your own. So I
Hmm.
said, right, I'll leave you to it. Apologise again. And he said, oh, you looking for the other guy? I said, yeah. He goes, oh, he's just walked down there, walked past me a couple of minutes ago. Went, right, okay. So I walked away.
Hmm.
And as I walked away, that was when reality kicked in. And my first thought was, I've just spoke to the devil. I did not
Wow.
get any other thought in my mind. And I turned round and he wasn't on the bench. Right. And that's when I started getting a bit panicky.
Hmm.
But I need to find Mark. So I go up, find Mark, and he goes, no, there's no one on the bench. I goes, there's recorders who walked past. So he stopped his phone, went back. As he's walking past where the bench was, there was no one sat there. There wasn't even anyone about. This is where it gets very, very interesting because Mark watched it back and he sent me a couple of stills from the video. I think there's about 9 or 13 frames of me
Hmm.
walking over and talking
Hmm.
to him. So he's dressed, baseball cap, hoodie, like I said, tracky
Hmm.
bottoms, trainers. He's got his phone in his right hand, so I'm looking to him from his left.
Hmm.
So, so say you're me, and he's like
Hmm.
that, looking at me, and he's
Hmm.
got his phone there. But his phone was emitting off a green light. So before the smartphones that are smart now, like the
Hmm.
old, remember the HTC One, and you had that
Hmm.
green light to it, didn't they? So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
could still use it like touchscreen,
yeah. Hmm.
like the first phones that didn't have a keyboard.
Yeah.
So it was like that. And it's like, oh, Pokemon Go was still a thing at the time. So is he
Hmm.
getting Pokemon? I don't know. I didn't ask him. And it was just nothing made sense. So as we're looking at these frames, it starts off with a really thin orange line in front of his face. By the end of that bit of footage, he's got a bright orange orb directly in front of him. Now, I told Steve Mayer about this, and he said he's seen this a number of times, and he give a name to it, and
Hmm.
it's basically something that shouldn't be there, and they're putting a mask in front of him. You can't see it at the time, but they're hiding what their true identity is.
Hmm.
So you could see, and then there's one picture. I'll try and find it. I'll send it to you. He's looking down like that at the corner of his eye. His nose comes long and pointed, and his chin comes long and pointed.
Wow.
Now I had my GoPro on a body harness just to see if it'd pick anything up.
Hmm.
This is where it starts to get bizarre. So
Hmm.
it's a live stream. Some people in the chat thought I was talking to myself. They couldn't see anyone. They couldn't hear anyone. And these still people that watch the stream now. I can give you the names of them all, and they will clarify 100% everything I've got to say. Some could hear, some couldn't hear, some could see, some couldn't see, some neither. When you listen to the audio back from the GoPro, he sounds
Hmm.
like a 90-year-old man, not a young lad.
Wow.
And then it goes even more bizarre, honestly. And because I didn't bother with this for a while, I just thought, oh, it's just a weird, like that with the thing on the wall. It just happened. It's just one of them. And then I kind of like delved into it a bit because it was just playing on my mind. So there's 3 rows, so it's where the war graves are, and that's the only part of the set. It's all pretty well looked after, but it's like bowling green grass. It's like
Hmm.
absolutely immaculate. And these 3 rows of headstones. Now,
Hmm.
when I was there this particular night after we'd done the filming and that, we looked at the headstones and the names on it. A lot of them were Eastern European, like Bulgarian, Czech,
Hmm.
Polish, Russian, all
Hmm.
the names, right? And there's 3 solid rows, and you can see it in the video. I think that it was April the 22nd, 2022, or the 20th of April, 22.
Hmm.
And then the third row, which is near the hedges, that was solid. It's not, you've got 2, then a gap,
Hmm.
then 3, then a gap, then
Hmm.
5. So I went back and I documented every single headstone and read them out as I walked. There was only 2 that are Czech Republic servicemen. I think one was a pilot and one wasn't. All the other names are like Benson, Davies,
Hmm.
Hunter, Stewart, Smith, all your typical English names.
Yeah.
And that makes no sense because I know for a fact that they were names that I couldn't even pronounce or write or anything.
Mhm.
So it doesn't make any sense.
No, and I mean to say that you got, that video evidence from 2 different perspectives as well that showed anomalous activity, and people live streaming were having difficulties,
Yeah,
either with the audio or the visual, right? That really kind of plays into what on earth is going on there,
yeah.
um that is quite
It kind of messed. I didn't mess me up a bit. It just a few sleepless nights just thinking because it is literally. It's not even 2 miles away from where I live. So I'm just trying to
mm,
find the images now. I know I've got them on StreamYard, but I pretty much keep everything on my phone.
hmm
And it's just I watched it back. I stopped every single frame, took a
hmm
screenshot, zoomed in, took a screenshot,
hmm
and I did that for every single one. But we've had other stuff go on there as well, and it's just so that right. So here it is. It's a bit pixelated, but
hmm
don't forget it's a still. So you can see his
yeah,
phone, you can see his face, you can see the bench.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Next picture. That's the same person.
Wow. So
And
that green that's coming up on there, that's his phone.
no, that's his face.
Wow.
So I'm trying to do it so you can see it's too much.
Yeah, yeah,
You,
yeah,
if I hold it there, you can see his eye, his
yeah.
mouth, and the pointy chin, and that
Wow.
orange in front of his face. But you can see. I'll send you that picture. You can see him
Yeah,
like
please do.
proper. Like for me, his eyes are looking into the back of your soul there.
Yeah, and that light's emitting right from the center of the face, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like it's coming out of him. So it starts off like that, just a
Yeah, yeah,
little
yeah.
nothing. You can zoomed into if I went the wrong way. So that's coming from his eyes. You can see his nose and his mouth,
Wow.
right? That's not normal. I don't know any, not even Marvel superheroes can do that.
So what gave you that impression? When you had that thought of, I've just spoken to the devil, what got you to that conclusion? It's crazy.
And then this is the main picture. So it's a silver birch, a bench, and that's what I mean. That picture compared to the first picture
Yeah,
is, and it's like his eyes are just piercing right through. There's a better one.
yeah,
That's a better close up.
yeah. That was extraordinary.
I just walked away and like, yeah, and then I think that's probably the clearest that I can get it.
Yeah,
I'll send you all of them, and
yeah, that'd be good.
it was just, it was. I don't know what it was. I don't know why or what. It was that reality, just because they say at the time when
Mm-mm,
you're having an encounter, it seems
mm-mm,
normal. Whether they make you feel relaxed, whether they emit some sort of frequency, they change the
mm-mm,
chemicals in your mind. Who knows? But there's something. It could have been frequency because I'm kind of going down that track with light frequency, sound frequency,
mm-hmm,
frequencies that we can't hear or see, like
mm-hmm,
infrasound. Um, if if a frequency has been given off and making me feel like, because I do a lot of like meditating with the isochronic tones and
mm-hmm,
isochronic beats, all that kind of stuff. So I
mm-hmm,
listen to that not as much as I used to, probably about 2, 3 times a week, usually before I do the podcast, just to get me nice and focused.
mm-hmm.
And you don't, with them, because you're supposed to wear headphones because each channel
Yes.
gives out different noises for those that don't know. So it makes you feel a lot more relaxed depending what frequencies you are listening to. So if he's giving off a similar sort of thing, you're not going to
Mm-hmm,
know because you're not going
mm-hmm,
to feel it or hear it. And it wasn't until I was out. Oh, I thought I had a funny noise then. It wasn't until I was away from his vicinity that
mm-hmm,
it was like snap, like you, because I've been hypnotized as well.
mm.
Mine was in a club, club in Cyprus, but it wasn't that bad. It was,
Oh
I knew
dear.
everything. No, it wasn't that bad. I knew everything that I was doing, but as they're telling you, you feel it, and you don't
Yeah,
just snap and you come out of it. They've got to bring you, as you know, you've got to bring you
yeah.
out of it slowly. But like when you see it snap, it was that snap, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, what just happened? It
Mm-hmm.
was one of them. So
Okay.
yes,
That's pretty freaky. That is pretty
yes,
freaky. And for you to have that thought, it's almost like you disconnected from that energy, from that
yeah,
frequency around that being.
yeah.
And once you disconnected, then your instincts kicked in
Back
to,
to me being me. Yeah.
yeah, wow. So what was the third?
So
What
the
was the third
third one,
weird?
right? So
Yes.
this happened at the beginning of last month. So this is I call it the not air balloon. So I'm driving down the A14, going towards from Northampton to Cambridge, and I'm on the
Hmm.
phone to my mate Simon. Normally giving me a call in the morning as I'm driving to my first job. I'm like, oh, hot air balloon. I was in one of the little villages.
Hmm.
There are some RAF bases around there, like you got
Hmm.
Milden Hall, Lake and Heath. There's some smaller ones. I think they just use them for training, but they're the main two, like what they use for flights and what have you. And I'm going through this village. I'm like, oh, hot air balloon. And I'm thinking it's a little bit early in the year to be seeing them. You don't normally see them until April, May, kind of
Yeah.
time. But then we looked into it, me and Darren, and it will. The day that I seen this was the first official day where you can fly a hot air balloon
Hmm.
because of the weather conditions and that
Yeah.
they can only fly certain times. So this was. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but that's the the photo. So you can just see a tiny dot in the middle
Oh yeah, yeah. Just about see it.
there.
Just about see
So,
it.
and I know what air
That.
balloons
Yeah.
look like. I used to work for a gas
Yeah.
company, and we fill the bottles up. So they use propane, same as what
Yes.
you use for the snack vans for cooking sausages and burgers.
Yeah.
So the guy used to go, and the baskets are about 8 foot square top. They're pretty big. Yeah, they're
Yes.
not little. And the balloon itself, I think they've got to be a specific size because they've got to hold so much air
Hmm.
for them to be able to maneuver. Obviously, you cannot really get a direction of where you're going to go. A lot of
Hmm.
time, it's just potluck, and you've the wing. It's all to do with weather conditions and the wind. So
Hmm.
I seen this, so I pulled up in this little like gravel pit, took a photo because something didn't feel right. Anyway, that was what I seen.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's not a hot air balloon.
No, and because I've seen so many, and Northampton has a balloon festival every year, so you see them all the time. And I know they can
Hmm.
only go a certain height because of flight corridors and all that,
Yeah.
even like aircraft. And like I said, the balloon's got to be a specific size as well for it.
Hmm.
If because obviously, if a bird flies into it and rips it open, if
Yeah.
it's tiny, it's just going to drop out the sky. It's not going to
Hmm.
be good for anyone.
Yeah.
So if they do get a puncture or something, at least then they can keep refilling it until they need to do a landing. But then I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. So
Hmm.
because I got an iPhone, it does the live photos, so you
Yeah.
can. So
Oh
can you
yeah.
see it rotate, spinning round like a
Yeah.
spinning
Yeah.
top,
Yeah.
right? Now I did not know this at the time, so I'm driving towards this, right? And I'm watching it for about 2 minutes. I'm thinking, well, it's not really moving. Surely
Hmm.
it'd be going either getting further away. I'd be catching
Hmm.
up to it.
Hmm.
Or even if it was moving away from me, I'd still be catching up to it because it wouldn't be
Hmm.
doing 30, 40 miles an hour.
Hmm.
I'd be going left or right. I'd be seeing it going in a direct, and it
Yes.
wasn't, it was just there. So I worked it out, and I reckon it was roughly at least the size of this 4-story building, probably another
Wow.
3 stories, just
Yeah.
because of how far away it was and
Yeah.
where I was. So do a live that afternoon just to talk about it. One of the guys in the chat put some filters on it. He comes up with that.
Oh, grief.
Oh, I gets better. On it, it's just so this is an actual still of what we're seeing.
That's organic looking. It looks like rock, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought it looked like someone just thrown a bit of rock up in the air and took a photo.
Yeah.
right? But this was about a mile and a half away. I'm getting quite good now at judging size and
Yeah, yeah,
distance
yeah.
just because I keep having to do it all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, right, okay. And it's like baffled me because it's like someone said, was it birds? And I get you get the murmurations. I love watching
Mm.
them. They're absolutely amazing.
That's never a
No, I've seen
murmuration.
murmurations, and if I can, I'll pull up and watch it till it finishes. Don't care how long I'm there.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's one of the most beautiful things you can see. And this was solid. You could see it rotating, spinning. You can see the light bouncing off it. You can see the shadows on it and everything.
yeah. Hmm.
So I'm like, right, okay. So that was like going out towards Newmarket side of Cambridge. So I'm going more
Hmm.
east towards Norfolk. Anyway, the next morning, on the phone to Simon again, I'm like, you're never going to believe this. He goes, what? He goes, there's another hot air balloon. He goes, take a photo. I went, I can't. I'm on the A14. So I
Hmm.
don't care. I pulled up into one refuge areas because there's no our children on them anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Pulled up in there and I took a photo. And people are like, that's a beautiful photo because of it's like you've got the crow on the fence and the mist and the
Yeah, yeah.
trees in
I
the
can see the
background.
dot. Yeah.
So yeah, so that I tried taking a video, but I couldn't zoom in enough
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get it. Anyway, so zoom right in,
Hmm.
no basket.
Yeah.
It's like another. It's not the greatest picture.
Yeah.
So I have compiled the two together and put them together and created a video.
Hmm.
But that's what they look like side by side. So that one is day one. That one's day
Hmm.
two. Right.
Wow.
So you think them other stories are mad? Wait till you hear this one. So I'm driving down the A14. I'm
Hmm.
just coming into Huntingdon from
Hmm.
Northampton, and I'm going
Hmm.
out towards Cambridge again.
Hmm.
So I'm doing steady 65 miles an hour thereabouts for eight, and I didn't at the time didn't clock it, but coming back, I measured it. I measured how fast it was going, how long it took, and
Hmm.
to the nearest mile. So
Hmm.
say it was 18.4, I said 18. If it was like 18.7, I said 19 because I can't
Hmm.
be asked with all the points and what have you. So it's like, it's about, I think it was 18 too. So it's like 18 mile at 65 mile an hour.
Hmm.
It was in my side window. It
Hmm.
kept up with me all the way and for 18 miles. But it stayed. Now, this is where it gets this is where it becomes unbelievable. If someone was
Hmm.
telling me, I'd be like, yeah, just shut up now. So it stayed behind this tree line. So there's a
Hmm.
few hills and fields and that. And it stayed at the same distance all the way because every time I looked,
Hmm.
it hadn't got any closer. But it did start to expand. It was getting bigger, not closer.
Yeah.
And that sounds stupid, but when you do what we do and you've done it for so long, you know the difference of when
Hmm.
something's close and big or far and small or it's in the same place and it's like a
Hmm.
balloon expanding. But every time because obviously I'm driving, so I won't take my eyes off the road for that long. And so
Hmm.
every time I looked at it, every single initial look, it was a
Hmm.
hot air balloon. But
Hmm.
when I got the opportunity to look and stare when I knew there's nothing in front of me and I was just driving straight and I could look for a few seconds,
Hmm.
it wasn't a hot air balloon. There's no basket. The colours were no colours. It's like a grey metallic silvery
Hmm.
gunmetal colour. If that was to stay level with me,
Hmm.
oh, I just need to throw another bit in. So this week on Tuesday, I actually seen on the same road, I'm like, it's a hot air balloon.
Yeah.
And I looked and I'm like, no, it was about this was about a mile, just over a mile away. I could see the
Hmm.
basket, I could see the
Hmm.
three people in it, and it
Hmm.
was massive. And I actually got a photo because the way I've positioned my phone on the dashboard now, I can tilt it up. So if there's anything in the sky,
Nice.
I
Yeah.
will take a photo. I don't care. So you might not be able to see it. So that's the photo, yeah,
Yeah.
obviously. And then you zoom in, you can see the hot
Oh,
air
yeah, yeah,
balloon,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
you can see
Yeah.
this, and you can see the difference
Yeah.
because you can't quite see it on there, but you can see a square thing at the bottom. That's a basket.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's got a very defined edge to it, hasn't it? A
that's
very
got the
defined edge.
yeah, that's got the like the teardrop,
Yeah.
and that I know you get hot air balloons in different shapes. Like you get the Percy bat. Percy Bassett and the Polo and a
Hmm.
giant boot trainers, depending who's sponsoring them.
Hmm.
But the majority of them are that. And the size of that makes a massive difference. So I did all the physics that I could do on this of
Hmm.
how long it took me to drive towards this hot air balloon and
Hmm.
how long it was before it was out of sight. So I drove towards it. As this was about that was about a mile away. If you look, compare them two photos, the one at the side of me
Hmm.
and the one from this week, they're about the same distance. I reckon roughly about a mile. It took me less than 40 seconds to get to it, drive underneath it. In less than 2 minutes, it was complete because it was flat. It was
Hmm.
completely gone out of sight. Couldn't see it in my mirrors. Stuck my head out the window, looked backwards. It wasn't there. So, and
I,
this is where I go
I,
back then to the one at the side of me. So,
yeah.
because of the speed I was traveling, direction I was going, and all that, if the one at the side of me was a hot air balloon, it would not have been, it must have been doing, because it always kept that little bit in front. So it must have
Hmm.
been doing about 67, 68 miles an hour
Hmm.
just to stay that little bit in front, because it was just like up at 2 o'clock. For it to stay there,
Hmm.
I know hot air balloons cannot travel that far for that long
Hmm.
and go in whatever direction they want. And as soon as I did like, well, it wasn't a night, it was a big spur, but I turned like a full like 90-degree direction. So I was going, says going south. I then turned east.
Hmm.
I couldn't see it in my mirrors. It should have been behind me. I should have still been
Yeah.
able to see it because of how big it had got at this point. Nothing there. So for 18 miles, traveling at 65 miles an hour, this traveling that little bit more than I was going, physics, it's not possible. Not for a hot air balloon
No,
that didn't have a basket
no.
or
I'm
flames
gonna
or nothing.
I'm gonna absolutely blow your mind now, Andy. This is gonna blow your mind. So I heard you talk about this a couple of nights ago on one of your podcasts.
Yeah.
You briefly explained what was going on. And yesterday I had a phone call with a gentleman who I've never spoken to before. It was kind of out of the blue, only sort of been arranged in the last couple of days. Never ever met him before. And we were on the phone. And about three-quarters of the way through the conversation, he said, I can see something in the sky that looks like a hot air balloon, but it's not a hot air balloon. And I
Oh
said,
my
this
God.
is crazy. And I said, and I'm going to message him after this and
Yeah.
ask him some more details. And I said, can you describe it? He said, it's almost like an upside down triangle. It doesn't, but the nearest thing that I can equate it to is a hot air balloon. And I had to tell him
Oh
your
my God. I
story.
know, swore
And
then again.
I know, and I was like, no. I mean, the synchronicities of that, of being on a random, not a random phone call, but a phone call with somebody I had never met. He was looking out the window when he was on the blower to me,
Yeah.
and him saying that out the blue. Out the blue. It wasn't like, you clocked a hot air balloon. You wouldn't say it on a phone call to somebody you'd never met.
No.
You'd just watch the hot air balloon.
Yeah.
But it was so strange to him that he had to mention it.
Yeah. But this is what I mean. So it's like you saying like you see a hot air balloon, you see a hot air balloon. And that
Hmm.
was it. It's like that one on the Monday. Oh, it's a hot air balloon. If I'd not been on the phone, I'd not felt there was something not right about it. I wasn't bothered. And then on the Tuesday, oh, another hot air balloon. But we
Hmm.
looked, and that was so the flight is from the 1st of March up until whatever date of September. It's all to do
Yeah.
with weather conditions and the heat and the thermals and all that. Now, Nicole emailed a few companies around Huntingdon, Cambridge, Peterborough area.
Hmm.
On one of them got back to her and said they did have a hot air balloon out that time. That is not
Hmm.
anything that looks like any of our that the one of ours
Yeah.
that was out. Plus ours was out at 7:15. It was back landed by 7:30, whatever. Now the
Hmm.
times I've got on these, so the first one, the photograph I took, to say that I'd been watching it for a couple of minutes. Say it'd been up about half an hour. That was at 9:09, so that'd be 8:30. Say it went up at 8:30 to get to that
Yeah.
out, but it's not a hot air balloon, so I don't even know why I just said that.
No.
And
I
the
mean,
other one,
has anybody
sorry,
has anybody spoken to you about the possibility? And I'm just playing devil's advocate here,
yeah,
um, because I from seeing those images, I don't. yeah, for the little that I know about things that, go off in the sky. But for people out there who would say, is it not a weather balloon that's collapsing?
No, because it wasn't falling.
Yeah,
Even so, when I'm showing you that picture and it looks like it's coming to it's not. It's me. I've took a photo and I'm
yeah,
moving my phone away, so it's me doing that. So
yeah,
that's why it looks like it's coming to the ground, but it's not. They still stayed at that height,
yeah,
constant. It didn't go up.
yeah.
That's what I mean. It did not change its longitude or latitude. It stayed whatever that pinpoint was. If it did move, it was minuscule.
Oh, I'm gonna get some more details off that guy because
Yeah.
I've got a feeling he is a bit further south. So it'd be interesting to see where he had that experience yesterday. I'll literally message him straight
Mm.
away off
Yeah, yeah,
off
yeah,
this and get some more details in there because I did explain that I'd heard you talk about it as
yeah,
well and said, that's bizarre because somebody I know has had a similar experience. So
yeah.
brilliant. I think on experiences, we ought to wrap it up and we ought
Yes,
to also have a confession.
yes. Go
Um,
on.
we have left this till the very, very last minute, and it's not to dupe anybody. It's just we thought it would be a nice way to introduce Andy, to have a get to know Andy session, and I'm sure we'll be talking about all kinds of weird and wonderful stories and
Yeah.
experiences that we've both had in the future. And that's because Andy is going to be joining Hare in the Hawthorn to come and sit and co-host, which
Yes.
is really exciting. And it came about very bizarrely.
I was gonna say, any weird how it come about though?
It is. It very much is. I think a lot of people over the last few months have questioned, how to develop or what to do with their podcasts or,
Yeah.
how to get the best out of them. And both of us were having that kind of rumble in different quarters, weren't we? And you
Yeah.
put something out on Facebook and said, yeah,
I kind of expressed my feelings in as deep as I could go without getting booted off Facebook, basically.
yeah, yeah. And I kind of reached out and said, I'm going through a similar thing and blah, blah, blah. So the next question I know that people will be asking is what's happened to Neil? And I want to address that very briefly. Nothing nefarious. Neil's a very, very good friend of mine and will always remain a very good friend of mine. And he has made the decision, and it's a decision that he didn't take lightly, to step back from Hare in the Hawthorn because I'm such a rubbish host. No, that's not the reason. He's taken a step back. He has had put on his table a fantastic opportunity for a body of work around Glastonbury Abbey, and he wanted me to state that so people didn't think he was writing another book and bugging him about his next book. He's doing a fantastic piece of work that is going to take him a huge amount of time, at least a year, if not more. I know that he has got ideas about what he'd like to do writing wise as well. He's going to carry on his blog. And I'm sure I'll grab him at some stage to come back on just to prove to you all that I've not stuck him in a cupboard somewhere and not letting him out. So and I faltered a little when Neil said that he would no longer be doing Hare in the Hawthorn, and that's when I spoke to Andy and I said, I'm having a bit of a crisis with this. I
Yeah.
started off Hare in the Hawthorn on my own. I'm quite well versed and quite used to interviewing people on my own, but it's so nice to have somebody else sat on the
Yeah.
couch with you, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
Because that's what happened with me. I had a co-host, they left, and it's like I know now that I have to do this on my. I need to push my own boundaries,
yeah,
not to prove to anyone, but to just for my own sake to prove to me that I've got this and I can do it.
yeah,
And I did. I did it for probably about 12 months, and I just got bored of it being me.
yes.
And I was like, if I'm getting bored of it being me, what are the viewers thinking? Because I'm being quite nice to myself about this. You know what I mean? So it's like,
But,
right, and that's when Nicole ended up coming on, and then Sarah
yeah.
and Tommy have been on in between, but they've got other stuff that they do. They do their own podcasts. Tommy
Mhm,
does Let's Get Freaky. Sarah goes out investigating, very regular.
mhm.
So they same sort of thing as with Neil. They've just not got the time
Yeah,
to commit to
yeah,
it because they've got their own lives and their own stuff that they need to put before anything else. So I totally get that.
yeah, me too. And I think having you on board, it's going to be definitely a different vibe and open it up to other possibilities. And definitely, it will always be fairy based.
Yeah,
But for anybody who knows me, I'm addicted to anything under the 14 umbrella, anything strange, anything weird, and especially with the connectivity between things like aliens and fairies and cryptids and
yeah,
whatever. And so over the next year, we are looking to put out content once a month together,
yeah,
and that'll be either with or without a guest to talk to, depending on who's available and whether it's going to bring something different, if you
yeah,
like,
yeah,
to the fairy table. So that's the plan. And I want to put it out to people watching as well is what kind of things, what kind of areas do you want us to explore? Also, I used to do, and it's something that I'm thinking going back to things like book reviews, if people found that interesting, and art reviews around strange subjects, and just doing, 30-minute blips of that. So we're at a stage of the world's a lobster, isn't it? It's
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of we'll
yeah.
see where it goes and what happens. And like I say, I didn't want to dupe the viewers with the false interview because it's not a false interview. It's definitely we wanted you guys to get to know Andy as well before he kind of jumps on board. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting and quirky. I think it's going to be
Yes.
definitely a quirky aspect. Are you looking forward to it? Because I know we've said a
Yeah,
couple of times.
I am
Do
really
you know what you
excited.
do you know what
No,
you've let yourself in for? We've had
I
that conversation,
yeah,
haven't we?
I never know and to just go with it. So it's the same old. It's just it is what it is, isn't it? But
Yeah,
one of my it's got my favorite thing to talk about is Inner Earth.
yeah,
Because that covers so much, and you can diverse onto so many different other things just from that. You,
yeah,
it's, it covers everything. For me, it covers everything.
yeah,
So,
definitely,
and
definitely.
unlike with the fairies and I've always been interested in that since being a little kid. Like I said to you, I can't remember who they were. The two girls
Hmm.
with the fairies at the bottom of the
Cottonley
garden.
fairies,
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
it. And whether they cut them out, and then there's another confession that they didn't cut them out of a book, but they was real.
Hmm.
So that's it. We still don't know. We're not any
We
closer.
don't. We
No.
we're not, and I think chatting about these these subject matters as well with a fresh kind of angle is going to be really interesting. So I think we'll probably do a lot of sitting down just on the sofa together and saying, let's have a look at this case.
Yeah.
What do we think about it? Do we think about it in terms of cryptid? Do we think about it in terms of fairy? Do we think about it in terms of alien? Because I love that kind of unpicking. And
Yes.
whereas my sway is ghosts and fairies, that alien and cryptid angle that you bring is going to kind of freshen things up, I think, and um, bring it into a kind of more conversational piece and throwing ideas around.
Yeah. It's like yeah, you said it's coming at different angles, and because through the people that I've spoke to, whether I've met them out and about or I've interviewed them, and it's just taking a little bit of what every single person said and storing it, and then
Yeah.
creating your own angle of it, and
Yes.
then you can throw all that into the mix, and then see what
Mhm.
it's probably still wrong, but it's fun.
I think I think anybody who says they know the answers or they're right about these kind of things, it's just like, well, if you're that shut down, it's a movable feast for me.
Yeah,
Ideas change, three times a day before breakfast. It's that
exactly.
Alice in Wonderland, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. That's the bit I love about it. It's like the rabbit hole, and
Hmm.
it can take you absolutely. You never know where it's going to take you. You,
Definitely
I,
not.
when I do the podcast, I know who I'm talking to and what we're going to be talking about, but I don't know what else it's going to lead on to
And
or
that's
what
how it should
direction
be.
it's going to go. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
definitely
they're
has
the
to be
best.
organic, doesn't it? An organic
100%.
conversation.
100%.
Right. I think we'll leave it there, and it'd be great to see you back. And we haven't got any guests planned in just yet, but we've got plenty of time. So, like I say, we're coming back in once a month to sit together and co-host. And in between times, you might just get my mug on the screen talking about something just random. So, thank you very much, Andy,
No,
and
thank you.
looking forward to pastures new.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, see you very soon.